Hi, welcome to my channel, Reader Woman. My name is Judy, and hope you're ready to talk about books. The book I want to talk about right now is Paula McClain's Love and Ruin. I just finished it. Thought it was excellent. However, I didn't love it. I thought the ending let it down. But just to start off with, this is a novel about Martha Gellhorn and her relationship with Ernest Hemingway. And beautifully done. I thought both of their characters were brought to life in a new and wonderful way. And I thought I'd explain how I came to actually want to read this book. It started for me in it's got to be a few years ago now, 6 or 7 years ago. I've never been a Hemingway fan, and so I was part of a book club, a literary book club at my local independent bookstore, which was fun until it wasn't. But one of the first books that I read was A Movable Feast, which, as anyone who's ever read it knows, it's a beautiful, light, very, very nice book. And just a joy to read. And particularly for me because, I'm a comparative lit major, and I've always had a lifelong love for James Joyce, Gertrude Stein, and Virginia Woolf. So to read about Paris when he and his first wife was there. It was just magical, getting to meet him, actually meeting Gertrude Stein for the first time. Just amazing. So that was really cool. And then my current book club, we read The Paris Wife by Paula McClain. And that was a joy. I thought as a novel, it read a little bit better. Not necessarily the characterization, but the fact it was more of a complete novel. There was an ending, the fact that sweet Hadley, who had been forced out of her marriage with Hemingway, I thought that was really nice that, McClain showed that she did have a happy ending after all, and which she richly deserved, considering the life that she was having with Hemingway at the end. And then, so when I saw that, and I also had read Paula McClain's life or her last novel about Beryl Markham, also another favorite of mine. Sometimes you look at history and there's just amazing things happening everywhere. And 1920s in Africa, British East Africa, was an amazing place too. So yeah, I enjoyed that novel. I don't know that I necessarily agreed with her complete take of Beryl Markham's personality, but it was very, very enjoyable nonetheless. So that brings us to Love and Ruin. A few things about Love and Ruin I would like to hit on. There was an age difference between Gellhorn and Hemingway, which I felt at the beginning as they were getting to know each other and discover the passion that they had for each other in Spain, that it seemed like their relationship started off as a mentor and student to a certain extent. I mean, Gellhorn had already published a couple of books at least. I'm not a complete scholar on her at all, but she had published one novel. It was mentioned in the book, and then she'd also published a kind of a memoir type stories that she had collected during the Great Depression when she went out to interview families to find out how they were surviving the economic catastrophe that was the Great Depression. And so she collected their stories and put it into a book form. So when they met in that bar in Key West by happenstance, yeah, Hemingway was obviously a well-known name. Even just seeing him, she and her mother and brother instantly knew who he was. But, at least she did. But, she was not well known. And so that, 10-15 year age gap, I think kind of was the way their relationship started. But I felt like that relationship, because at least for him, it didn't seem like he was willing to change that. The Spanish War I found very fascinating. I knew about it. I knew young men and even women as nurses were volunteering to come help fight for Spain's freedom from Franco. But reading about it in this book gave me a deeper appreciation. I mean, it was the world's opportunity to fight fascism in a small corner of the world. And the world decided, no, we don't care. We are too comfortable and we feel like this will go away. Or that we can deal with it at a later time. So I felt that, it was eye-opening seeing that it wasn't just Franco, but Hitler was sending troops as well as Mussolini. So you had the bad allies already banding together early in the 30s to fight this war in Spain. So, and, for the reporters and the journalists who were there, it was the start to something that ended up being World War II. But I thought it was just very fascinating. Hemingway, of course, already knew Spain, which, he also went to Spain as a journalist during this time. And he came back and wrote his great novel, For Whom the Bell Tolls, which I guess I'll have to read next. But I don't have, it's not on my TBR at this moment, but I will read it. Because he said that he had loosely based it on his relationship with Martha. So, they fall in love in this war-torn Spain that's being destroyed in front of their eyes, and they're there for, a relatively short time. I don't remember if it was a few weeks or a few months, but they left and went to Cuba. So, right there, Cuba was Hemingway's stomping ground. It was a completely new and fascinating experience for Martha. And Martha, it sounds like, was just a born traveler. There's a reason that she's renowned for her war correspondence as well as her travels and other writings. McClain really brings it to life, the fact that as like a 3-year-old, she jumped on the back of a wagon carrying ice, and she was going to run away from home. And for her, traveling was as necessary as breathing. I don't know that she realized that at this point, but she was always wanting to go and do something and see something new. And so while she was seeing Spain and Cuba, for the first time, and they were new. For Hemingway, it was a return to the same. And at least in this book, I'm not sure if it's a real part of Hemingway's character or not, but he was a man who enjoyed going back to the places that he loved. And for him, a successful and happy life would be going back to those places year after year after year after year. And so right there you have a major issue in both their romance and later marriage, of how do you, I mean, it's not like he's a homebody in the sense of staying at one home, but he had homes at 5 or 6 different places, from Cuba to Key West, Montana, Idaho, Sun Valley. I'm not sure where else. And I mean, for him, he looked forward to a life of coming back and exploring and getting to know each and every stone, each and every bend in the river, each and every, part of the scenery. So yes, he was a homebody in the sense that he traveled, but it was always to his homes. That's where he was most comfortable. Whereas she wanted new experiences and new people and new rivers to see, not to see just what was around the bend of the local river. And that put a large strain. But also, I think fame put a huge strain on them both, that ultimately they weren't able to bridge that divide. Because just as they were getting married, he was publishing For Whom the Bell Tolls, which had a huge success. It pivoted him up hugely. And he was, the literary world was abuzz with this great new work, but also Hollywood came a-calling. And every famous actor and director out there, an actress, wanted to play the starring roles. So, they became friends with Gary Cooper and his wife. They met Ingrid Bergman. I don't remember the directors, but, these people came to be friends and also to court them. So, it was a vastly satisfying time for Hemingway, and a rather frustrating time for Gellhorn, because basically she wasn't able to do what she needed and wanted to do. She had to be more of the dutiful wife. And I thought she did a really nice job, McClain, of, explaining why, the two of them never had a child. Hemingway expressed that, he wanted to have a child with Martha Gellhorn, and she basically, not now. The dream of their marriage was that they would write together. He in one room, she in another, and they would support and be each other's critic and, rah-rah team and encourager. And ultimately, that's where the greatest treachery came in. Love didn't conquer everything, and it's sad when it doesn't. The book, explained that, but, I was a little surprised because I was looking up a little bit about Martha Gellhorn and her life on Wikipedia. And during World War II, where she was a war correspondent on and off for a couple of years, I believe, she had an affair. I mean, who knows how many affairs Hemingway had. He was not a man who wanted to be by himself. He wanted a wife. He wanted a woman to take care of certain things, but also to be there for him. And with that kind of requirement, even though you love someone, how far do you give yourself up to them? And that was ultimately the question here. But of course, Most of us are not Martha Gellhorn. We are not um, an adventurer, a true fighter for our own path. And I think that's why she resonates so much today, as in her own lifetime, because seeing a woman who had to make those tough choices and was willing to put aside um, the security of her marriage in order to do what she felt compelled to do, of, being a writer, of getting as close to the front line as possible in World War II. It was very, very inspiring. I encourage you to read it. I thought that McClain just sort of let it die down rather than coming to a great ending. Um, but still well worth reading, and I hope you pick it up. So let's talk books next time. Take care. Bye.